South Carolina. Senator Lindsey Graham is joining me right now. Senator, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
So, where to begin? Let's begin here with government shutdown. After you all reached agreement on how to avoid a government shutdown, the president then tweeted this morning calling for a shutdown. Let me read the tweet for you, Senator. This is what he wrote. The reason for the plan negotiated between the Republicans and Democrats is that we need 60 votes in the Senate, which are not there. We either elect more Republican senators in 2018 or change the rules now to 51. Our country needs a good shutdown in September to fix mess. Is a government shutdown ever good, Senator?
No, but at the end of the day, since World War II, there have been 4 times Republicans had the White House, the Senate, and the House, 11 times for the Democrats. So if you're a Republican, changing the rules is probably not a good idea. I don't know if I'm going to vote for the bill they're going to present to the Senate here soon. I think the Democrats cleaned our clock. I think there are things in this bill that I just don't understand. This was not winning from the Republican point of view. So the bottom line is, no, I don't want to shut the government down, but I don't want to continue to fund Obamacare either, and that's what we do here.
Well, and that's really interesting because Paul Ryan in the House just a little while ago, he had a very different take. He definitely does not think that Democrats cleaned your clock. He thinks that there are a lot of conservative values that you all got in there. Is he just spinning?
Well, there's all kind of ways to look at it. We got more money for the military. I'm for comprehensive immigration reform, but sanctuary cities go untouched. Obamacare continues to be funded in a way that we all say is illegal. So the bottom line here is this whole process of funding the government where you put 12 bills into one and you don't get any input and you vote on a bill 2 days after you have a chance to look at it is just bad government. So I think the Republican Party's goal for 2018 should be to bring every appropriation bill to the floor standalone rather than doing these giant bills. That's the best way to correct the system.
But back to the president's position on this. I mean, it sure looks like what he's saying is bad is bipartisanship. Republicans and Democrats working together. Is bipartisanship the problem right now in Washington?
No, I think we don't have enough of it. But at the end of the day, what's bad is that we pass legislation to fund the government that nobody gets to look at. You put everything into one big pot, and a handful of people negotiate the bill, and the rest of us are supposed to vote on it. What would be good is have bipartisan legislation to fund the government where every individual account comes to the floor of the House and the Senate. It gets debated, voted on, amended, where Republicans, Democrats get a chance to look at it before it's just thrown into your lap.
So real quick, are you a firm no on the government funding bill, or are you
pretty much no? Yeah, I just don't like the process, don't like the outcome, and I don't want to shut the government down. But this has got to change. This is a lousy way to run any business.
Let's talk about health care. It seems stuck right now once again in the House. I mean, and there's no question that you and I have discussed this before then and now. If it gets to the Senate, it's going to see changes. What is your advice to your friends in the House right now?
I would be careful to rely on the Senate to change the bill because I don't think we have a very clear way forward. Here's the trade-off I'm willing to make. As a Republican conservative, I'm willing to have federal government involvement in pre-existing conditions. Those people who can't find insurance in the private sector can't be just thrown over. So I'm willing to create a managed care system where the federal government picks up most of the tab, and the trade-off is to create a private sector market for people who in normal insurance. To preserve normal insurance, take care of pre-existing conditions through a government-run program, but as to the rest of the population not covered by government-run programs, give them a chance to have more choices, not less. That's the trade-off I'm willing to make, but we're stuck as a party. What I'd like to see is a bipartisan solution to replace Obamacare, not just a Republican solution.
Do you think right now the bill that they're talking about in the House, this amendment, is better for folks with pre-existing condition or does less for them?
Well, the president says the bill contains protection for pre-existing illnesses.
Right, but you've got moderates like Charlie Dent who doesn't agree.
I have no idea what's in the bill. So I'm telling you, you know as much about what's in this bill as I do. Wouldn't it be nice to get both parties together in sort of an open process, see if you can find a better way to preserve private sector health care in this country, bite the bullet on pre-existing illnesses. As a nation, we're going to take care of people that can't find insurance. But as to the rest of the population, give you more choice, more competition, not less.
Love that Pollyanna theory. And
Yeah,
that's not the
and it's pretty
Washington you live
Pollyanna
in
right
now.
now.
You
It
do look
is.
like Pollyanna today. Let's talk about
I've been
things.
called a lot of things, but not that. Okay.
Add that to the list. I've got a couple others I can give you. Things you're not Pollyanna about, though, is North Korea. And I do want to talk to you about this. You have called Kim Jong-un a nut job.
Yeah.
The president says, though, he'd be honored to meet with Kim Jong-un in an interview. No matter the conditions, Senator, would you be honored to meet with Kim Jong-un?
No, I'd find it very hard for me to sit down across the table from a guy who makes Bashar Assad look like a choir boy. If you understand what he does to his own people, you'd be repugnant to be in the room with him. But we're in a business here. If the president meets with this guy, there needs to be a purpose for the meeting. And when you meet with somebody as President of the United States, that's the ultimate legitimacy. You provide status to that person. So I would caution meeting with anybody like this unless you had a plan. My goal is to make sure he can never have a missile with a nuclear weapon on top to hit America. If meeting with him will avoid that, fine. But the day you meet with somebody, you confer legitimacy on them, because there's nothing like the White House in the entire world, and there's nobody more powerful than the President of the United States. So I'd be very cautious about that.
You say that if you understand what this man's like, he makes Bashar al-Assad look like a choir boy.
Yeah.
Do you think the president doesn't understand?
I don't know. I'm sure he does understand how brutal North Korea is. It is living hell. It's the #1 human rights violator in the world. What he does to his own people, you can't really say on TV. Just read the UN report. It'll make you sick to your stomach. So the President of the United States is the most powerful person in the world. Going to the White House is a tremendous honor. And what I would caution the President about is don't legitimize this guy, because he is a real outlier in the world. But you live in a tough world. If talking to Putin is part of his job, meeting with people throughout the world that we don't like is part of the job, but do not confer legitimacy on this guy unless you're sure it helps the overall cause.
Do you think Kim Jong-un is a smart cookie?
I think he's got a plan in his own mind for regime survivability, and that is, if I can get a nuclear weapon and attach it to a missile that can hit America, America will never bother me again. In his mind, the Korean War is still alive and well. He thinks we're going to invade tomorrow. We're not. Here's what I think. I think he's a brutal man that cares more about himself than anything else. My goal is to convince him, if you try to get a missile to hit America with a nuclear weapon on top, that will be the end of your regime. And if he believes that, he will stop.
Right, but how can these two things, the president says we could be headed to a major conflict with them, but then also says he'd be honored to meet with them under certain conditions. Does he understand? Does that confuse you?
Well, what I would say to the president is that you're on the right track by getting China in the game. China controls 90% of the North Korean economy. Don't legitimize this guy. If there's a meeting between the President of the United States and Kim Jong-un, it needs to have a purpose, and I don't really understand what that purpose would be right now.
Okay. You talked about inviting people to the White House. The president has now invited the president of the Philippines to the White House. Were you happy when you heard that?
No. This guy in the Philippines, I don't know all what he's done, but I know what he said. I know his approach to being president of the Philippines is contrary to the rule of law and democracy as I know it. But again, it's a tough world, and you got problems with China and the Philippines. The Philippines have been a good ally in the war on terror. There's terrorist groups in the Philippines that we're working with the Filipino government to deal with. But at the end of the day, this man has said things that are just completely contrary to my view of